Hey everyone, Dr. Nuesse from EasyDOTphysicals.com back again with another video, and in this one I'm going to give you the number one thing, the thing that you can absolutely not do before a drug test if you are concerned about testing positive for marijuana. And this is actually the winner of our recent YouTube poll. Put up two options. You got to vote, and 73% of you voted for the number one thing that you cannot do before your drug test. Will CBD oil make you fail a drug test? Actually did get a decent amount of votes, so I'm going to leave that up on the poll topic for the next time. And I think I'm going to do these polls kind of regularly. If you guys want to see a topic, I'll do it, and if you don't want to see it, I won't do it. So make sure you go over to the community section of my YouTube channel and vote on the next poll and help select my next video. And while you're over there, you might as well subscribe. This channel is all about pre-employment medical testing, DOT physical testing, and drug testing. So, what is the number one thing that you cannot do before your drug test if you are concerned specifically about testing positive for marijuana? The number one thing that you cannot do is start an exercise program or do anything really that's going to make you lose body fat. Now, why is this? This is specifically because of how THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, is processed by your body in order to be able to make the metabolites that are detectable on a drug test. So unlike most other drugs, THC is fat soluble, so it will actually bind to fat that you have stored in your body. Everybody's got a percentage of body fat, and when you ingest THC, some of that THC can be stored in that body fat. So what can happen is if, let's say, somebody starts an exercise program or diets or whatever, and they're starting to break down body fat, that can actually release more THC into the bloodstream, and that THC then is metabolized, and then those metabolites can show up on a urinalysis. So let's look at a specific study that I pulled up, and this will shed a little bit more light on this specific topic. All right, so I'm just going to read you an excerpt of this study, kind of just the good stuff. The main psychoactive constituent of cannabis, THC, is stored in fat for significant periods of time, which explains its long elimination half-life. This is why you can test for THC marijuana for a much longer period of time in a urinalysis than you can with most other drugs. We have recently demonstrated in THC-treated rats that dieting or stress, because rats obviously don't go through workout protocols, by promoting fat breakdown caused THC to be released back into the blood. So accordingly, it is possible that individuals who have kicked their cannabis habit for some time, who decide to go on a diet, may experience a sufficient increase in THC blood levels, causing them to be spontaneously intoxicated. All right, so I think there are two interesting things about this particular study. Number one is the fact that you can be a marijuana user, you can build up THC in your body and then stop using for a significant period of time. And then if you start exercising or dieting or breaking down body fat by whatever means, that THC can then be re-released into your bloodstream, actually causing you to be high, to feel the sensation that THC is known for. And then that THC can then obviously be broken down, be metabolized, and that show up on a drug test. And number two is animal activists, animal rights activists are always talking about cruelty to animals in some of these studies. Well, I don't think that these rats mind being in this study that much at all. And also, what does a high rat look like? I would love to be a part of this study and see what these rats, how these rats actually behaved, like what was going on with them. Anyway, I digress. Back on topic. The government, this chart is straight from the federal government, states that, and look at the difference here, saliva versus urine testing when it comes to marijuana specifically. Saliva is just a few days. Saliva testing is just a few days because the metabolites don't enter the saliva. You have to actually be using marijuana very recently in order for it to show up in a saliva test. marijuana, look at this, it can be over 2 months that it's possible to test positive on a urine test. All right, so let's look at two specific scenarios, two possible scenarios of why this might trip you up when you are going to take your drug test. And I've actually heard basically verbatim both of these scenarios by patients in my offices. So here's scenario one. Scenario one is a person has a drug test coming up. Maybe they're surprised by it. They just got a new job that requires drug testing. They didn't know about it, or they've been pulled randomly to get a drug test. And they get nervous, they get freaked out. So they decide that they're just going to work out really hard, maybe eat really, really clean, try to sweat out the toxins, all that kind of stuff. But if in that process of doing that, they're metabolizing body fat, because if you're working out hard, maybe you're eating a little bit better, a little cleaner, your body's going to start releasing this body fat for fuel. You're going to break down body fat because you're working out hard and maybe eating cleaner. And this THC is then going to be released in your bloodstream, and then you might test positive. You might have a higher likelihood to test positive. You might actually be doing the exact opposite of what you are trying to do, and increasing your chance of testing positive for marijuana instead of decreasing your chance. All right, so scenario two, I actually think is worse even than scenario one. And that is a person that is a marijuana user. They maybe don't work out all that much, all that frequently. They don't eat all that healthy, but they have a drug test coming up in the future. So they're smart about it. They decide they're going to stop using marijuana and before their test, and then they proceed to home test to make sure that they're clean. And I always recommend home testing. If you home test, it's not 100%, but you can have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen on the actual drug test. And I'll leave a link to my preferred home drug test in the description box below. Please home test if you are concerned about testing positive for anything. So they're home testing. They know that they're clean because their home test is coming out that it's clean. And then they just happen to go, well, I'm going to get healthy now. I want to start working out. Maybe it's the new year. Whatever the scenario is, they start working out. They start on whatever diet is, and they start then metabolizing body fat. And even though they haven't been using for an extended period of time, that home test came out negative. They're starting to release body fat, and that can release THC into their bloodstream. And then without them even being aware that it's a possibility, boom, they pop positive for marijuana on their drug test because it was stored in body fat. All right, so that is just one of the reasons why people are pushing so hard to replace the urinalysis with saliva testing. I mean, there's just such a huge difference in the window of time that you can test positive between a urinalysis and saliva. Saliva, just a few days, and then when it comes to marijuana, it can be tested for up to 2 months in a urinalysis, even if you've stopped using. So a big difference there. I'm a big advocate for using saliva testing. I think that is coming down the line. Again, stay subscribed here. If it does change, or if any of the standards, the drug testing standards change, I make update videos on this channel. I want you guys to be informed. I don't want you to walk in and be uninformed during your next drug test. So in summary, working out, eating healthy, they're very, very good things. If you're doing it all along and you don't really change your routine, you're probably not changing the likelihood of you testing positive for marijuana on a drug test. But there is a potential, if you go from not working out, not really watching what you eat, to being very strict about what you eat and exercising very, very hard, that can release THC into your bloodstream by breaking down body fat, and then that THC is metabolized. And even if you've stopped using for an extended period of time, you can test positive on your next drug test for marijuana. All right, everyone, I hope this short video was helpful, was useful and informative, and until next time, stay safe.